there's limits. It's a legal agreement. They cannot be physically harmed in any way. They can be psychologically harmed. And no one in the video really breaks, but there is a woman who pretends to be broken so that they'll leave her alone. And it was a very interesting scene because then she talks about it later in the video that actually she exaggerated being upset so that they would just leave her alone and move on to the next person because she was, it looked like she was completely at a breaking point, but actually she wasn't. So it's an interesting way to go about, and here's some more scenes from that. So the scene on the right is from the project she did where she was the interrogator. The scene on the left is from the first part of the project. This is the woman who is actually exaggerating how upset she is in the face of interrogation. And the video is very intense, even though you know that it's a game and you know that it's totally fake. But still, you play into it. You see these women being shuffled around with their feet bound and their arms bound and hoods put over their heads. And they really do, they really do fall into the mentality of being prisoners of war and giving and having information that is trying to be that the Team Delta people are trying to extract. So looking at the role of perpetrators and people who are being being violated or have their rights taken away in some way, it's actually it's an interesting take on that whole question of why do people suddenly, people who are completely average, people who would not normally be considered a sociopath or psychopath, be then encouraged to turn on their fellow human. This is a question that has, through the entire history of war, through the entire, maybe look at World War II, this idea of ordinary people turning on the entire population, committing atrocities. I mean, these were just banal, ordinary people. The same thing with the soldiers at Abu Ghraib. These weren't monsters, quote unquote. They were just kind of ordinary soldiers. These weren't evil masterminds who were trying to torture people, but it's that mob mentality. So Fusco, again, she's using her art, her performance in this video to kind of explore, and then what we talked about in previous lectures, making it public. So it's one thing to explore it for yourself personally, that's called research. When you turn it into a film, when you make it public, when you go on a lecture tour and try to explain to people the mechanisms of this kind of torture and coercion, that's where the art practice comes in. It's taking the unseen, making it seen, and exploiting kind of the rituals of interrogation, kind of showing them as, exposing them as rituals, as artifice. So now, because this lecture is just going to keep getting more and more depressing, we're going to shift gears here to the idea of art about genocide and also absence. These are two different concepts, but I'm linking them in here because when you think of genocide, the result is the absence of a population that are tied together through some, either whether it's a superficial characteristic or something much deeper. The result is absence. The result of some of the state-sponsored terrorism that I'm going to talk about later is also absence, it's disappearance. So, remember this guy, Alfredo Jar? You saw him last week. We talked about the cloud. He was the one who had the balloons, which were very biodegradable, floating over the canyon, the U.S.-Mexico border. So Jar has a long history of working with people who are repressed, underrepresented. In some way, he's been committed throughout the course of his career. He's from Chile originally, and Chile experienced its own state repression when he was in his formative years. So he took it upon himself to really explore not just art about war, art about genocide, but the meaning of art and the meaning of images in the face of this. So it's actually a bit more complicated than simply protesting or simply exposing the truth of something. I'm going to show you the most bootleg video ever. I'm really sorry about this. You're going to see, I'll just preview it. It's like 9 minutes long. I might pause it partway through just to talk about it, depending on time. But you're going to see text across the screen. At some point, whoever is holding the camera shifts it, and then you can't see the text anymore, but there is more stuff after that. So we'll see. But there's not really sound, but kind of have that running in the background. And it does start with like 20 seconds of this. But this is an installation piece that comments on, I'll just preface it saying, comments on the Rwandan, not sorry, the Somalian famine, genocide, Sudanese